Welcome to the Business for Aligned Women podcast. I'm Honey. I'm a coach working primarily with women and specialising in aligned business, personal transformation and embodiment. Each week here I'll be sharing business strategy, business advice, tips and tools for you to think more deeply, for you to get more self-aligned, and for you to start your week in the most conscious and intentional way possible. Welcome. This week we will be having a short episode exploring a rather deep topic of comparison and how I see that it affects my clients and some ways that I suggest for you to compare yourself in what I refer to as a successful way or a healthy way. I wanted to begin today talking about my recommendation, and it is a bit of an internal one. It is that if you're not already signed up to my mailing list, you might not know that about every 2 months I send out an email that I refer to as my musings email. And this email is the most well-received email that I have ever sent in my business. And it is essentially me chatting about some things that have come up in my life, reflecting on the last couple of months, and sharing a ton of recommendations. So I've just written the email for this month, which will come out this Thursday, and I've shared so many TV shows, books, recipes, even knitting patterns. And it's just a lovely thing to tune into every couple of months. And, you know, if you feel aligned with me, you'll probably like a lot of the recommendations that I share in there. It's completely free, and I will pop a link in the bio for you to directly sign up and start receiving that musings email. Before we get started today, I firstly did want to invite you to join the upcoming standalone workshop that I'm running on the 19th of June. It's called the Energy Aware Instagram Strategy Workshop, and this will be about a 45 to 60-minute workshop where we're going to explore the statistics and realities of what's going on different social media platforms, what Instagram has told us that it needs from us in mid-2023, how you should actually review your Instagram, and kind of exploring also what the place of Instagram actually is in 2023 in business. I'm going to really help you to reassess and maybe reposition your energy and your efforts for that platform. And for some people, that might mean that you'll come out of the workshop and you will be putting all of your eggs in the Instagram basket and you will be going hard on Instagram. And for other people, it might even mean that you leave the platform completely and you do something that's more appropriate for your audience. It's going to help you build a strategy that you can immediately implement that will allow you to not feel like you need to be posting all of the time if you are one of those people who has not really seen much benefit from Instagram of late. It's going to save you a lot of time and energy, and it's going to probably also not only just reignite your relationship with your business, but it will also probably make you think a little bit more around, you know, what marketing is and what you need to be doing in order to have a successful business. And it's definitely not just focusing on social media. I think you've probably gathered that from my podcast so far. Even if you don't have a business, but you want to grow an Instagram account, this workshop would be appropriate for you. It's 88 Australian dollars and it's a live event, and the replay will be included. I will also pop a link in the show notes for that offering. Just before we dive into everything comparison, I did want to briefly share some thoughts and success from a client who I will be interviewing in the coming months on the podcast. There will be a few interviews coming up with my clients talking about their businesses, what they do, and kind of how it was working with me. And I think it will be really powerful for you because they're also different and they all offer such specialized, important and interesting things in their businesses. And they've obviously all got a different perspective of working with me as well. Recently, Bianca, who runs at at Embodied Self Therapy, finished up a 10-week intensive with me in mid-May, so about 3 weeks ago as of me recording today. And Bianca decided to do a 10-week intensive, and she also did my TikTok growth training because we realized a few weeks in that TikTok was probably essential to her business, and it made more sense for her to do the training kind of as homework rather than something that we did in sessions together. In the 3 weeks since we finished up, and this is as of today, and she is growing at a rapid rate. I looked at her TikTok yesterday and I looked at it today, and it's got almost 1,000 more in that 24 hours in terms of followers. But since, in the last 3 weeks since we finished up, she has gained a total brand redirection. So I actually went through her business and suggested that she cut out a whole lot and re-pivot her focus onto all of these other different skills and offerings that she had. And as always, it's your business. So you take or leave what I choose, what I share, you have the end decision. But I'm specifically looking at it from a strategic business perspective, an aligned business perspective, and also using my autistic advanced pattern recognition skills. So as an autistic person, I can really see, if you keep doing this, this will happen. If you don't do this, that will happen. And that allows me to position you and give you advice that is really likely going to be the beneficial thing. And, sometimes I call it intuition. It's actually not. It's actually pattern recognition skills. But, I kind of said to Bianca, I said, I don't want to get your hopes up, but I'm really certain that if you do things this way, everything's going to blow up and you're going to get a lot of business. And I kind of said to her, if you don't have paying clients with this new offer within 2 months, there's something severely wrong, and come back to me and we'll work it out. But within 3 weeks, it looks like she's about to sign her first paid client. So in 3 weeks, she's got a whole new brand redirection. She's got really strong brand clarity. As of today, I think she's gained about 3,000 new followers. I think that's what she said. As of yesterday, she had an extra 25 people on her wait list for paid sessions and an extra 50 people in her sales funnels. And she's had one video go viral with over 185,000 views as of the last time I checked. She's got a year-long plan of things that she needs to work through in her business, a long-term aligned business plan that she will have forever. And she's had her first really successful chemistry calls with potential clients. And all of this has really helped her gain a lot of confidence, a lot more self-worth. And she expressed to me that she finally feels like her business has been validated. In the survey that I sent her after coaching, one of the questions is, if you decided not to work with me and you didn't sign up for this 10 weeks and you just spent the last 10 weeks doing business on your own, would there be a different outcome? And she specifically said, if I hadn't have done this, all I would have is a few more Instagram posts and not much else. Bianca's a really great example of someone who was a client who came on board and allowed herself to be incredibly open-minded, incredibly open to feedback, and also took almost every single piece of advice and every single resource that I gave her and actually implemented them. And by doing that, within 3 weeks, she basically has a whole new business that is growing so much more quickly and is going to be so much more successful than what she's been trying to do on her own for the last few years. And, she's been trying to grow an Instagram following for the last couple of years. And within 3 weeks, she's got a TikTok following that I think is 3 times the amount of her Instagram followers. And, that's in 3 weeks. What happens if she continues to show up like this for 6 months or a year? One of the parts of that is that I saw her potential and I actually reflected it back to her. And having the accountability and having me to check in with her, and also just, I chatted with her today and she shared some great news with me, and I said, oh, you should do, set up this and set up that to try and save her time, because things were growing at such a rapid pace that, you have to have a bit of infrastructure set up when you're dealing with that many clients. And she said, yes, I wasn't expecting this much volume. And I said, I was. That is one example of a really dedicated client and what can happen in working with me. And something I would love you to reflect on is what has happened in you trying and to an extent struggling to do your business over the last 10 weeks, 6 months, a year, and really understand that if you just continue on your own, nothing changes if nothing changes, and you'll be having that same experience. And open yourself up to the potentiality of what could happen if you finally dedicated to working with me. I speak to a lot of clients, or potential clients, I should say, every single day, who, will either say that they're saving up to work with me, or, I have a lot of people reach out to me every 2 months or every 3 months and say, oh, I'm really going to make this happen. I know I need it. And they just never do. And it's really sad, because it's like you could have been here. You could have grown so much in the 6 months that you've been playing around with thinking about it. And especially if the hesitation is money, because it's like, if you invest in this, the potential of what you can earn if you follow my advice is probably wildly out of your realm of what you think is possible. Finishing up that and moving into our deep dive on comparison. I am fairly sure that the vast majority of people who listen to this podcast and engage with me on Instagram and TikTok have issues with comparison. All of my clients historically have had issues with comparison. There's maybe one or two that I can think of who didn't really as much, but most people, and, some people, really severely, have allowed comparison, especially, truly mainly only via Instagram, to hold them and their business back so severely. Spending tons of time looking at what other people are doing, feeling hard done by when the people that they're comparing themselves to are having successes and they aren't. And, one of the reasons why those people might be having successes is because they're not wasting time comparing themselves to others. It is a natural thing to an extent, and it is unnatural for us to be exposed to so many people that we kind of see ourselves in and might compare ourselves to. But it is 100% within your control to stop doing it, to navigate when those feelings come up, and also to potentially do it in a successful or a healthy way. Personally, I've never had a huge issue with this. Whenever I see other people doing something and being successful, my immediate thought is, if they can do it, I can do it. My brain will probably try and break down, like, what advantages do they have over me as to why they've succeeded more than me. And the biggest thing that comes up when I kind of do that mini assessment is that they've just been doing it for longer. And this is something that I make sure all of my clients go through when we do our business plan. There is a section on competition. Most business people would think that you really need to have a good understanding of your competition. I kind of don't, but I don't know if that's because in my industry there is just, it's so huge and there's so much competition that, especially being online, it's hard to narrow down who your competition actually is. It's probably a good idea to have a rough idea of a few people. And what I often see is that my clients come back to me with their list of competitors, and their competitors have been doing it for 5-10 years longer than they have. And it's just totally daft. Why would you compare yourself to someone who is so much further down the line to you? It's incomparable. So one of the main things I do is I get them to not just go by social media. Look at people's websites, Google them, see what comes up, read the about page on their website and see how long they've been doing it for, if they can. It's really interesting because was someone that there was a couple of women that I didn't compare myself to, but I was just aware of them and I was aware that they were growing quickly. I follow them because I like them, but I actually muted them because I didn't want to constantly be seeing these people's work who I thought were, growing more quickly than me. And that might make me feel bad on some level. So I just decided I would mute them. Recently, I kind of tuned back into a couple of these women. Both of them, like myself, like almost everyone on Instagram, have lost a ton of followers over the last 2 years. That is for various reasons, including the chronological feed and just people no longer using the platform or moving over to TikTok. So that was interesting because rather than comparing or competing, it was like, oh, it's not just me. Everyone's dealing with this. And so that was a healthy way of comparing and checking in, noticing. But one thing that was much more interesting was that one of these people, I actually did a workshop with them. And I just thought, and in that workshop, they were complaining about, social media, and they were complaining that, the business was really suffering because of social media. And after that workshop, I went away and I Googled their name and I Googled their business, and absolutely nothing came up. The only thing that came up was their Instagram account when I Googled their business name. But apart from that, there was no reference to them. There was no Google page. There was no customer reviews. And that made me really realize and feel good about the fact that I haven't been tunnel vision with my marketing. So I kind of went down a little rabbit hole there, but if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably used to me doing that. But what I'm trying to say is, if you feel like these people are your competitors or you are comparing yourself, you need to do that little bit of research and find out if you are in the same realm as them. And, if you're in the first year of your business and you see someone who's been doing it for 5 or 6 or 7 years, you just need to give yourself a slap on the wrist and back off and maybe find someone who's doing something similar to you who's also just started. If you want to look at someone and compare yourself, or have someone to, one of the ways that we use competition in our business plans, one of the suggestions that I have for my clients is just once a year, maybe when you're doing your yearly planning, you might look at their websites. And the point of that is not to copy them or to judge them in any way. It's simply just to make sure that you have your finger on the pulse of the market. Are there any particular trends happening in my industry? And also, you might notice that people try certain things and they're either successful or they're not successful. And then you might be able to ask yourself, well, I wonder why that did or didn't succeed. And that, it might be that they offer a certain product. You can say, oh, well, they've got really great marketing. It's a really great product, but it didn't really work. So therefore, our target audience probably doesn't want that product. So I'm not going to try and make a product like that. Okay. And you see how it's a little bit more ethical, a little bit more useful, and it's more of a successful way of comparing yourself. It's actually, if you're going to do it anyway, do it in a way that is actually beneficial for you. And the other major point that I often bring up with my clients when we're doing our aligned business plan is to double check that that person has the same target audience as you, because so often they will not. Now, I'm going to do a little throwback here, but back when I was doing yoga, there was someone who I compared myself to. I don't think I ever did it as much as I've seen other people do it, and my clients have done it, but I was aware of her because we offered really, really similar offerings and really a small niche, and we were both doing it in Australia. And one day I clicked that this woman's branding was all pink and pale and fluffy and on trend and hippie. And she was targeting really young women. She was targeting women probably in their late teens and early 20s. And I dare say she was doing that because she wasn't that educated. And if she got people who were really young, they were probably more malleable and easy to manipulate. Whereas my branding was completely different. My target market was 35 to 40 and older only. I was really aiming for people who were incredibly discerning because I didn't want people who were into all of that fluffy hippie stuff. That made me completely drop the shackles of comparing myself to this person because we're not even playing the same game. We're not even in the same league. We're not even, it's not even the same sport. It's completely separate. So why would I waste my time comparing myself to someone and someone's work who's actually entirely irrelevant to what I do? And if you have people that you're comparing yourself to, I would love you to go through those questions. Go, A, how do I know that they are as successful as I am projecting onto them that I think they are? Number 2, have they been doing this longer than I have? Number 3, do we have the same target market? I can almost guarantee that most of the people that you're comparing yourselves to will be knocked out through those 3 or 4 questions. I would love to hear your responses to this. If you do that and it makes a difference for you, please let me know. I would love to hear if, the concepts of actually checking in with your competition once a year so that you have a lay of the land of your industry rather than looking at their Instagram, beating yourself up every week, sounds expansive and nourishing. I would love to invite you to share this episode, share the podcast, share it in your stories, send it to a friend. If you have a friend, especially, if you have a business buddy who is really stuck in comparing themselves, please just flick this episode to her in a text right now. I would also love to invite you to work with me. I have, as of today, 2 spaces remaining for the Subtle Alchemy program for this year. That's a 6 months one-to-one coaching program, and they are definitely going to fill up and won't be offered again until early next year. I hope that you got something out of this episode, and I would really love to hear your feedback, whether that's in DMs or stories or in a review. I will speak to you next week.